Okay, so let's do a walkthrough of the actual Fusion 360 environment. So obviously at this point you've gone through, you've made your account, you've made your student account, or you've done your student verification, you've downloaded and installed Fusion 360 from the Autodesk website, and it's all actually functioning. So let me swap over to Fusion, which is one of these screens. There we are. All right, so this is what you're going to be seeing. Now, first thing, this is the general environment. It seems kind of sparse because Fusion is intended to be a little more accessible to people that could otherwise be completely overwhelmed by like all the buttons. A lot of the CAD software has all the things. You've ever worked with like Adobe Photoshop, it has like all of your tools as visual buttons and then drop down menus and stuff like that. The attempt here is that Fusion has had, or they have, is to try to minimize that and try to make the environment change when you go into a different tool set. Meaning that if I start a drawing, it's going to lose. I'm going to lose all of these tools up here, and it's going to swap over to all the tools I would need for doing a drawing, which is called a sketch. But first thing is you are asked to create your own team. That's going to be your own project stuff. That could be stuff where you can play and do whatever you please on that. But we have a class shared team where you're going to be saving all of your work. That is accessible through all the way up and left, this little matrix button, this little grid pattern. If you haven't already, I sent out an email to everyone to please respond with the email that you set up your account with. It's fine if you haven't done that tonight. It's okay. I just did that ahead of time so we can get caught up. There's a drop down here. You will have whatever you set yours up. And if you've gotten an invite, if you've already sent me your email address, I've already logged it and check your email and it should have. What was that? Sorry, is a question?
How do I join?
Did you send me your email? Did you respond to the email I sent out with what email account you set up?
I didn't get the email.
Check your email after the email and then email, and then see how many more times I can say email. But you can toggle between the accounts, your teams. We don't have that set up yet. That's okay. We'll do that afterwards. If you would, just reply to the actual email in your account and type in what email you set up your Autodesk account with. Jeez, sorry. I'm getting the same word scrambled up there. Now, one drawback to the team thing, you cannot transfer any files directly between teams. Even though Fusion is built around being able for teams to access the same project file, it's only they've set up to where only the teams or only the people on that one team in that one group can have access to that. So for this class, I highly recommend doing all the classwork on our personal or on our actual shared team, the BSU 3DM, and we will have more than one folder eventually. So you create your project in that folder, save it in that folder. There you go. You can change to your own personal and have whatever you please on that. We'll go from there. All right. So that's the thing there. Now, if you forget or you built it on something else, yes, you can get that transferred over, and I'll show you how later. But that's the basic, just that right there. That's how you access that stuff. The other far right-hand corner, the little silhouette, that's how you can bring up, let me move the Zoom thing. That's how you can access directly your online, the account information. So like going to Autodesk website, it'll take you right there. You have all your stuff, yada, yada. Those are the main ones. These are just kind of like your help stuffs, like this little clock symbol. It'll have a little dot, a little warning or something when it's time for an update. Check regularly, especially before class, like well before class. Like we have class at 6. If you get here a little early or like the day before, check. Fusion does pretty regular updates, and sometimes it can bog stuff down. So if it's a larger update, you're just kind of twiddling your thumbs, waiting for stuff to start while we're in class, that sort of thing. So try to check. The other stuff is just warnings and help centers and all that such. All right. So you got all your different tools. One of the most important things, Autodesk Fusion saves everything online via cloud. So the great thing about that is you save your work, you're working at home, computer craps out, you come to work, you come to class, you forget your computer, yada yada yada, any variation therein. You still have access to your stuff. You can log into these two desktops, and you will immediately have access to all of your files. It will automatically save stuff. If internet connection gets cut off while you are working, it will save locally on your computer. And then the next time that you have access, it will update to the online servers. However, it will not save until you first save manually. So if you are working, go to the file button, save, or the old control or command save or command S, save your project. Walk through, and it is already in the file. If you file folder, if you forget, I'll move them around. It's okay. Yes. That's what I'm doing right now. Yeah, you can.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm going to get to in a moment. Good question. Question is, if you save it now, is that like logging? Is that like, are you going to have to resave it later, or can you save just a blank file? Yes, you can save a blank file. That's what I'm doing right now. Go to save. All right. My misspelled wall through apparently, and version 0. When you do updates or you manually save, just for grins, oh, not extrude. Let me just like, I don't know, make a cylinder there. This would be one of those pre-made shapes. Bam, cylinder. I can either go over here, save, or control save. Two things. It's going to bring up version description. This is where you can add notes, because remember, you can make changes, things like that, but Fusion lets you go back and save and operate on previous versions. So I don't know, cylinder. I'm going to go over to the data panel, open up. Now, okay, apparently it's jumped to version 2. This little V2, click down, and you will see the different versions. So say you've made a bunch of changes to your file. You know what? I don't like any of this stuff. I want to go back to before I made these changes. You can select one of those, open that file, and then you can either save and it'll overwrite everything else, or you can then save as and create a separate thing. You do not need to go through manually putting in keychain 1, keychain 2, keychain 3, really last version, totally final. I mean it this time, last version, part 5. It'll keep automatically updating. Yes. That's okay.
Yeah.
Having no experience is perfectly fine. Mm-hmm.
So is it kind of like the same kind of saving setting? Like, are they?
Probably. Okay, I see the question. Okay, I see what you're asking. Where in like Photoshop, you're creating multiple layers, all that stuff. So you're creating multiple layers, all that stuff within like a Photoshop file or something? Correct. You can have, right. But ultimately, that's all saved as one single Photoshop file until you export it as like a JPEG or as a TIFF or something like that. Same thing here. It's all going to be saved as a Fusion file, and if you wanted to actually download it onto your computer, it would be oh crap, I forgot what the file name is. I think it's FDM, EDM. No, that's music. I can't remember. But either way, you don't save it on your computer. It automatically saves, uploads to the internet, and that's where it saves. So you don't have to worry about always having the most updated file on your computer, or if you're used to like storing everything on like a thumb drive or anything like that. You don't have to worry about managing all of that stuff. It saves everything online. Sure, I understand. I get you.
It's kind of like working with layers, right?
In a way it is working with layers. It's more like you're working with say if you're used to say if you're say the storage system, the versions that it creates here. Yes, it is like building off something, but say like you're used to using like Photoshop, and if you made changes you want to be able to reference back to, you would do like, all right, I'm saving this as version 1. I'm saving this as, added with a duck. I'm adding this one with 3 more layers. So you'd have like a whole bunch of files in that one folder on your computer, so that way you can jump back and forth as you need to. That makes sense? Okay, I'm just checking to make sure. It's already combined. They are already all simultaneously accessible, or say like, let me just throw out here, I'm going to create also with like, I don't know, sphere out here, blah, blah, blah. There we go. And I'll save with sphere. If I can spell, that'd be even better. Now when I go to the data panel, it's going to update, and it'll be version 3, and it'll note my note here. Or what I could do is say, like, maybe I made a whole bunch of changes. I don't like that anymore. I want to actually open that one. I can go to the one just with the cylinder, open, and now it's the older version. Now it will give me this warning that any changes I make, it will override. That's all. So if you do want to make distinct, different ones, you can then say, you know what, actually, I'm going to go to save as, walk through, different D. Now I will have created a completely separate file that I can work separately with. So that's all. You don't need to create multiple versions. It will do it for you. But if you want to make distinctly different projects off of like the same base, that's what you would do. At some point, save it as a new thing, and then you can work for the other 2. Does that answer your question, or at least help with it? Okay, great. Appreciate you asking. So the whole thing, just different ways to save this clarification. Excellent. All right. So I've made my stuff, yada, yada, yada. How am I working with all this stuff? Well, one quick thing, great thing about Fusion is if you mouse over a tool, it's going to create a little pop-up window that's going to both describe it, tell you about it, that would be describing it, and give you a little visual representation of the tool also. So it's really helpful if you're just trying to figure stuff out, mouse over stuff. It'll show you different ways of how it's working. It'll even, if it has a hotkey, meaning like hole, you can just press the H key and it'll bring up that tool. You of course have your standard drop downs, which just expands that. These toolbars at the top and such can be added and subtracted to. Say like some of the tools I want to add, let's say I want to use the emboss tool. I'll get to what that is later. If you mouse over, little ellipses, the 3 dots, I can left click on that. I can add to my toolbar, and it'll permanently add it to that. Well, it'll add it permanently as long as I leave it there. Also to shortcuts. On that handout I said, one of the ones you really can be very helpful, you don't have to memorize them all, is just shortcut, S, search. That's how you can, I don't know where this tool is, but I definitely want the line tool. Line's actually a drawing, so you have to have the line environment or the sketch environment open, but that's, you can find that. So you can add to different toolbars. That's also a quick way where you can reference back to stuff if you want. We will get to some of this stuff later, at least in description, but this, where it says design, there's a whole bunch of different options here that Fusion can do, like generative design, which uses AI to actually create material or create parts between like parameters, meaning like I want to have like a hole here and 2 holes over here because it's going to be like a bookend. Well, I can show a basic shape and it'll have AI generate like a more organic web, kind of like, it looks like kind of like bones and stuff like that between. Unfortunately, that's an add-on feature, so of course that's not free. The render environment is where you make objects look like they're really meant to. I can apply appearances here by pressing the A tool, and it'll bring up a little toolbox when it actually thinks about it. So one kind of irritating thing about Fusion is it likes to bring up all these floating toolboxes and can kind of quickly overload your screen. So that's unfortunately just one of the ways it works. But this is where you can bring up things like, I want to make this look like, I don't know, Sure, a mirror. I click and drag, drop it on there. Now it looks like kind of like a mirror, but the reason it looks kind of funky, one, it's a reflective surface, so whatever's in the room when they took the original photos, like it's like an airplane hangar or something. If I go to render, that's where it'll fully describe that as like a really shiny surface. But we're not really going to get to work with a lot of this stuff this semester because we just don't have time. It's not set up for that. But you can do a lot of stuff. You can animate more complex assemblages with like moving parts, things like that. You can simulate like stress points, things like that. So for engineering, you could actually go directly to manufacturing. So if you had access to a machine shop with CNC equipment, you know, the computer controlled lathe and mill and all that stuff, you could take your object, send it right to that, machine it out. And then drawings are for generating those technical drawings we were kind of talking about. So for the most part, we're going to be in the design environment this whole semester. You have your variety of tools. If I was doing, say, a drawing, let me just hide that for a second, which is going to be the most, what we're going to be starting with, sketch environment. You click the sketch button. I select what plane I want to work from. So X, Y, like I'm drawing straight down flat on a drawing paper. Reorients. Now you have all your drawing tools. We're going to go over what all these are later, but these are all your drawing tools. Say I just want to draw a couple of circles. Boop, boop, doop, and I don't know, kind of a doodly do line drawing back through. Great. Difference being there, solid objects that are completely enclosed are light blue. If it's open-ended, it's just going to be open-ended. If I drew a straight line between those two dots, it encloses the drawing. Now it's light blue. It just shows you that it's something you could work with. When you finish with that, and I'm going to talk about all these tools later. When you finish with that, finish sketch. Now you've got a drawing that I can then use the extrude tool, select a profile. Oops, I have bodies hidden. And it will create stuff. And what just happened there? It's because I have a whole bunch of stuff hidden. Why is that hidden? Oh. New body. Boop. There we go. It automatically hides the sketch. Just go to the drop down, click the little eyeball button. There you go. So that's, for the most part, actually how we're going to be working with this first project. We'll explain it more. Right here is what's called the project tree or hierarchy tree, meaning like the most important things on top and little subs and sub things below that. Main project, the whole thing is going to be what it's titled as. You can see it at the top of the bar here. You can see it at the top of your project tree. You can always rename that. There you go. Settings below, switching from like millimeters to inches. For the most part, we're going to be working with millimeters. If you just super don't want to, more power to you. The reason I work with millimeters more so, one, who wants to multiply and remember fractions? Granted, the computer is going to do the work for you, but you know, either way. Also, the 3D printers, their base measurements are in metric, so it makes it easier to translate from like when you've made something online or in your in Fusion, put it through the slicer program, which just helps the object be ready for printing. And then printing, you don't have to resize things and stuff like that as often. Shouldn't have to, but just so you know. You do have below named views. Now, what this is basically just showing you the different views of your project if you were working in more of drafting techniques, design techniques. You've got your top, got your side or front, in this case, right side, and then the perspective view. What I did is I pressed Shift 1 or Shift I, and it toggles back and forth between that. It's one of the hotkeys, and you can also do that from down here. You're going to have your origin point, which is this virtual thing right in the center, the point smack in the middle of the entire virtual environment. You have your axes. I didn't have the green marker or where it doesn't work as well. Red is X, green is Y, blue is Z. The planes, these little yellow planes, you mouse over them, they highlight. The XZ is like you're working right in front of you. The YZ is side to side. You get the idea. Below that is going to be bodies. Yes, I will repeatedly giggle every time I say the words, but the words hide all the bodies are going to come up a lot. So we're slice the bodies, chop up the bodies, all that kind of thing. Look, it's little pleasure for me. Whatever, you giggle as you like, whatever. You can rename things, obviously. Right click or slow click on the thing. All right. Cylinder. Body 2. Instead, I want it to be squiggle. You get the idea. Below that are sketches. Ultimately, the hierarchy is most bodies are made of sketches. In this case, we used a sketch, extruded it to create a body. A body is a three-dimensional object. A sketch is a two-dimensional drawing. Can I create multiple bodies? Absolutely. All within that is called a component. This little white cube symbol up here, a component is the top of the hierarchy. Within a component can be all the stuff that's here, meaning origin, bodies, sketches, all that. I can create multiple components that can have their own, within them, their own set of sketches, their own bodies, all this stuff. Don't get overwhelmed. We'll talk about that later. Just saying now you could create multiple stuffs. That's how you make like things like different components, like would be like two different parts, and then you connect them with a joint and you can make the stuff move. That's why. Other stuff down at the bottom, these are how you can view, these are all your view options. I highly recommend, if you haven't, get a 3-button mouse. Don't need a high-tech mouse. A very basic like travel mouse will do. But a left and a right and a scroll wheel work wonders. You don't have to, but again, it makes things a lot easier. You can certainly do all this just with a trackpad and such, but a lot of extra options become immediately more accessible with left and right clicks. You do not, if you're working on a Mac, you do not need an Apple mouse, smart mouse, or anything. Not even left, right, and wheel click. That's all you need. You can, of course, have programmable buttons if you want, but you don't need it. Orbit. Press that button. Click and hold somewhere. Orbit is moving the thing all the way around in all directions. Or hit escape to get out of that. Or if you have a mouse wheel, press and hold the mouse wheel. Actually, that's pan. Sorry. To orbit with a mouse, press and hold shift and then the mouse wheel, and you can orbit around. Look at, you can select and then select a thing, and it's going to snap the view to relative to that, whatever it is. If it's a sketch, straight up and down, there you go. Pan is grabbing a sheet of paper and just moving it around left, right, up, down, whatever relative view it is. Or, again, if you have a mouse, press and hold the wheel, that is pan. Zoom, you know what zoom is. Zoom window snaps the whole thing. Mouse wheel, zoom in and out. The zoom window is the same as hitting F6. It just resizes your screen to all the things so you can see the whole thing. You do not have to memorize all this stuff, just going over it. Over here are just going to be your options. Meaning that first one, display options like virtual environment. If I just want, right now I can see it's shaded, like an object is shaded, like you've drawn in with a pencil, and you can see the lines that are only visible, so it's an opaque object. I could do shaded, and I don't see the outlines of the edges and such. Or I could do something like wireframe, and I can see straight through it, but I don't clearly see the faces, the edge, or the faces, only the edges. I'm gonna leave. I usually leave it as shaded with hidden edges. Totally up to you. Other ones, environment, like I can just change the overall look of stuff. That's all. These are all just visual options. That's all that really is. The one I was using is called Photo Booth. That's it. Play around with these as you like. That's all. It even has enter full screen if you like, Control Shift F. And that just sent my computer reeling. So hopefully I didn't just lose everybody. Uh-oh. So apparently don't do that. At least for me. Uh-oh. All right, so I won't do that again. That just freaked out the computer when I've got all this stuff running. The other one is grid layout and stuff. This is just that virtual grid, that virtual space. That's all. You can set different things. And the last one is viewports. That's what I just, or view, multiple views. That's what I just said. Hit that one and you can see it from multiple views. Usually we'll be using the, just kind of perspective one. The last thing on here is over here, this floating cube and the home and the little home symbol. Hit home and it brings it back to the original 3/4 perspective view. You can either click on the view cube and it'll snap to that viewport or viewpoint, or you can click and hold and drag that cube along and you'll see that virtual, that green pivot point and show you how it's orbiting around. These are just ways to see your objects. Hit the home button again, snaps back. However you like to work, it's up to you. That is the basic environment. We're going to be going over the tools and such shortly, but the main thing is that's just how to navigate the space. Again, don't forget, it will automatically save, but it's always a good idea to save often. Manually save your work, Control or Command S, and then you can, of course, add whatever notes you want. Last details, I don't know, whatever came to mind. So that's pretty much how the environment goes. There's a lot to learn, but try not to get overwhelmed. We're going to go through it step by step, and you're going to get there. So that's where we're going to stop for there. We're going to pick up in a moment, talk about the actual project, and actually do a quick walkthrough with some time to work. So I'm going to stop the recording, and we'll move on.